Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back to Ghosts and Glitter. My name's Rachel, and today I'm talking about all the books that I read in January and February. I 100% forgot to film a January wrap-up, and then it got so far into February that I was like, that's just weird to do a January wrap-up now, so I'll just wait. And so now here we are, and instead of 10 books, I have 21 books to talk about, and I'm just making it harder on myself, but it's all fine. This will probably be me rambling because, you know, what are words? And I have 21 books to talk about, but you know what? We're just gonna go in. Before I get into all of this nonsense, well, it's not all nonsense. Before I get into all of this, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more of this nonsense. In January, I read 10 books. Only 2 of them were 5 stars. So not great, but not bad. In February, I read 11 books, and only 3 of those were 5 stars. The lowest rated book that I read in January was Getaway by Zoje Stage. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name. I'm sorry. I rated this 2.75. I know that's really close to a 3. I couldn't give this a 3. This was not a 3-star read. It wasn't a 2-star read either, but so that's where 2.75, highly specific, but it's from the heart. I listened to this as an audiobook from the library. This follows 2 sisters and a former best friend as they go hiking in the Grand Canyon and things go wrong. I think this is listed under horror. I wouldn't necessarily put this in horror, but I'm not gonna gatekeep what does and doesn't count. I think this is more thrillery, but I think this is a great book if you mostly read contemporary fiction and don't read thriller and horror, but are curious about the genre. I think this would be a good book for you. My expectations for this was survival horror. I love, you know, going for a hike and things go wrong. I love, you know, camping and things go wrong. Anything that involves nature and things going wrong, I just really enjoy. And while they were hiking and things did go wrong, it wasn't the wrong that I wanted. I wanted survival. I wanted, oh shit, we're out of water. I wanted our group of people, our little group of 3 people turning on each other because of like the elements, and because that would really happen if things went wrong during a hike. And that just didn't happen. This was more of a reconciling relationships trip. It was a lot of dialogue about reconciliation, which is great and has its place in every genre, but this was too much. I will say this is my first book by her. I'm not writing her off. I will still pick up her books. I think she is a gifted writer. I just didn't like what she did with this concept, because I was really excited about this concept, honestly. I was really excited about it, and it didn't match up with what I wanted. If y'all have read any actual survival in nature stories, thriller, horror, what have you, I would love to know, because I really haven't read a lot of stuff like that, but I do, like I said, love that whole trope. Okay, the next book. This is another audiobook that I listened to, and that is Old Country by, who is this by? Matt Query and Harrison Query. This is a book based off, I believe, a story that was on Reddit or something. This is about a young couple who buys their dream house. I don't remember really what country? No, what state this takes place in. Somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, they buy like this beautiful, lovely house on like this large plot of land, and they're just like, yes, we're homesteaders now. And the land is not haunted. It's basically owned by this malevolent, malicious spirit that lives on the land. And every season, the spirit takes a different form. Like in spring, it takes the form of this light in the lake. And when you see the light, you're supposed to light a bonfire or something. And like in the summer, it takes the form of a man being chased by a bear. So I love the concept of like this spirit that takes different forms based on the seasons. That's so cool. And those scenes where the spirit showed up were awesome. They were creepy. If I had been in my mountain cabin, I would have been disturbed. Like the images from those scenes are stuck in my head. I think they were really well done. I think they were really well done. And that is probably the only reason this isn't a full-on 2-star, because everything else was not well done for me. Here's the thing. Okay, I think the book was a little too long to start out with. I think the book was a little too long, but we can forgive that. What killed the book for me was Harry. Harry, husband Harry. It's been a while since I've hated a character this much. And I love hating characters if they're like meant to be hated. Harry is the actual scariest thing about this book, because Harry could exist in real life. And this man, okay, I'll give you all an example of why I hate Harry and then we'll move on, probably, maybe. Sasha, his wife, is telling us, the reader, about how Harry gets very defensive of her when he feels like or perceives that she has been either threatened or is scared or made uncomfortable in any way. You know what? Okay, that's whatever. The example that Sasha gives is when they were in college and they were going to go out for a date. It's at nighttime. Sasha steps out of her dorm room or whatever. Outside, Harry's waiting for her, and she sees a raccoon. And the raccoon, I guess, like, makes a noise at her and, like, kind of runs at her. She screams, she's scared. Harry fucking bashes the raccoon to death in a bloody, gruesome, mindless rage. A raccoon that made a woman that he was just going on a date with scream a little bit. And he kills it in a very violent manner. And that's concerning. I did not really like this book. I liked the imagery of the actual, what was supposed to be the actual horror with the spirit and everything. This had a lot of potential and scary Harry. Anyway, that's all I'll say about that. This next book, kind of unpopular opinion, 3 stars. It's not a bad rating, but that is Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. Everyone loves this book, I feel like, and I thought it was fine. It was fine. So we are following our main character, Finlay Donovan. She is a single mother, fairly recently divorced from her shitbag husband, and she is an author. She writes like crime romance fiction, and she is in a Panera Bread restaurant talking to her agent about her newest book, and this lady overhears Finlay describing her book and thinks she's a hit woman, and then hires her to kill her husband, hires Finlay to kill her husband. And I love that premise. I super duper love that premise. But this, it was fine. I didn't hate it. I read the next 2, as you'll see later in the video. I'm going to go get my dog. She's being fussy. So yeah, basically I get the appeal of this book. I feel like the stakes of the book were too high for the book. I feel like this book couldn't decide if it wanted to be silly, goofy fun or like actually serious. And the characters are silly, goofy fun, and the actual stakes are like, oh, good Lord, And I mean, yeah, we have Finlay mistaken for a hit woman, so I guess it makes sense that the stakes would be astronomically high, but the vibes were off for me. The next book, this is a 3.25 rating, maybe a 3.5, I don't know. I was so sad to rate this so low. Maybe it was the mood I was in when I read it, but that is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. I wanted to love this book, and I didn't love this book. Ugh. This book starts off in 1922, following our main character, Count Alexander Rostov, who is sentenced to house arrest in this luxury hotel where he kind of already lives, by the Bolshevik, like a Bolshevik tribunal, that's the word. And we're just following basically the rest of the Count's life as he lives in, well, not isolation, he meets tons of people, but as he lives in this hotel. And it's a super cool premise. I've been saying how much I want to read more historical fiction. And no. Okay, go bark at the UPS man. Whoa, you knocked off some of my plant. Plant murderer. Objectively, I think this is a 4-star book, probably. I think part of my rating is my fault. I took a long time to read it. I read it at a very busy time in my life. The problem that I had with this book is when it interjected backstory, when it interjected history, when it interjected a little rewind, like this is what happened to cause this, it broke up the tempo of the story for me, and I kind of like lost where I was. I don't know, it just it was like too info dumpy. Like, I don't know. He's a talented writer. There was a lot about this book I loved. I annotated the crap out of it, but it just took so long to get through, and I was just like, oh my god, I want to read something else, but I didn't want to DNF it. Maybe I should have. I don't know. No, you don't get to leave now. You don't get to leave now because you're just going to be a bully. The next book on here is a 3.5 rating. That is Desperate Measures by Katee Robert. This is a erotica novel that is basically Disney villains as the love interest. Literally, quite literally, a smutty Disney. This one in particular follows Jasmine and Jafar. Yeah, this was really fun. This was well written. I don't really know how to review smut, but it was good. I appreciated that Katee Robert does put a content warning. I think she's a good writer. There was plot in this. It wasn't all smut. It did have plot to it. It was perfect light reading for like to read between the more serious novels that I had been reading. Got me out of a reading slump. Yeah, it was great. Fern, come here. Oh! Was that in your way? All right. Well, next up, we're into the 4 stars. So all 4 and 5 star reads from here on out. The next book on here is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. I listened to this on audio and had a blast with it. This is like cozy horror, but I think it's kind of a stretch to put it in the horror category. We do have witches, we do have ghosts, we do have some spooky elements, I suppose, but like it's not scary. It's not supposed to be scary, and that is fine and fantastic. I obviously had a good time. I gave it 4 stars. We're following our main character. What's her name? Following Annie. She's recently been dumped by her longtime boyfriend, and so she moves to a new town to kind of restart her life. This town is very Hallmark vibes. Like, it is quaint and cozy. Everybody knows each other. It has a cute little wine shop, cute little bakery. Like, it's great. The town is great. And she is befriended by Sophie, I believe her name is. And Sophie is a witch, and the town is scared of Sophie because she's a witch. And, you know, things happen. This is, I think if you like Hallmark vibes, and like who doesn't really, I think you'll enjoy this. I had a good time with it. Like I said, I wasn't like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever, but this was a really good read. I think Rachel Harrison is a talented writer, and I am interested in her other book that has to do with werewolves that I think is in this same kind of cozy, Hallmarky Halloween vibe. Cackle was really good. Okay, the next book is Thursday's Child by Nicci French. This is the 4th book in the Frida Klein series, which is a series that I'm hoping to finish this year. The Frida Klein series is basically about Frida Klein, who is a psychotherapist. Is that the right word? We'll go with it. We'll say it's the right word. And, you know, she finds herself solving mysteries, and it's a great time. I think, I do think when mental health is discussed in these books, and it is frequently, I think it is done well. you know, I don't have a problem with how it's discussed. It's never used as a plot twist or anything like that I can remember. Yeah, I just think these are really well-written books. They're more on the literary side. They're not like this fast-paced mystery thing. They are very relationship-based and a little slower paced, but I still think super well done. Thursday's Child sees Frida kind of being dragged back to her past and having to go back to like her home town or whatever and like confronting her past there, and I really enjoyed this one. All right, next up at a 4.5 rating, Fern. Yeah, nope. I'm gonna knock it over again. At a 4.5 rating, we have You've Lost a Lot of Blood by Eric LaRocca. This is my first Eric LaRocca, and it was so good. I loved this. Definitely not for everybody, but this is a story within a story, and I'll be honest, the main story, I didn't like that much, but the story within the story was like an easy 5 stars for me. It was trippy, it was wild, it was so cool. So, the main story, you're sinking. So yeah, the main story is mostly transcripts and poetry. And the poetry was cool. I like the poetry, but like the characters with the transcripts and everything, I didn't really care that much, to be honest. But like I said, the story within the story that is written by one of the main characters was so cool. I loved it. It's following this girl and her brother. She is traveling to this mansion to work for a well-known video game developer, and weird things start happening. I thought it was so cool. Like I said, very fever dream-like, but very cool. The 2 5-star reads for the month of January were actually the first 2 books that I read in the month of January. The first one is The Prince and the Dressmaker, written and illustrated by Wang. This is following Prince Sebastian, who is kind of an unwilling prince. He doesn't really want all the royal responsibilities. His parents are wanting him to marry a princess, and he's just like, eh. What he does want to do, however, is wear these beautiful high fashion gowns and go out at night as Lady Christella in these gorgeous gowns. That's what he wants. And then we're following Frances? Yeah, she is a dressmaker and she makes all these glorious gowns, and she is friends with Sebastian. She finds herself in his employ and she learns his secret of going out in the town as Lady Christella, and she covers for him and she makes him these gorgeous dresses, and it's their story. The artwork is beautiful. The story is so sweet. This takes place in like France coming into the modern age, and it was so wholesome. It was so wholesome. It's precious. Like, I loved it. And the artwork. I love the artwork. Anyway, this is a graphic novel, by the way. I maybe should have mentioned that. Okay, final book for January and final 5-star for January. That is none other than We Spread by Iain Reid? Yeah, Iain Reid. I have only read one other book by him, and that is I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I loved that book. I listened to the audio and it was so good. This might be better. Well, I'll just tell you what it's about. So we're following our main character, Penny, who is a senior citizen, an artist, and living alone in her apartment. And she's had like one too many like incidents at home. Like, she's fallen one too many times. And basically, I think it's the guy who she leases from in the apartment. Basically, he's like, all right, we need to get you to like an assisted living facility or nursing home of some kind. And her husband, I'm not exactly sure, has already passed, like he's already died. But he had made these arrangements for her to go to this super like kind of exclusive nursing home facility. It's set like way back in the woods. He had already made these arrangements, and Penny is like, huh? I didn't tell me about these arrangements, what the heck? But she goes off to this, facility. She enjoys her time there, but then strange things starts happening, and she is like looking for an explanation. And this book really toes the line of, is there an underlying, machinations at this facility, or is Penny just aging? This book was beautiful. This book made me cry, which again, not hard to do, but still. I just think the topic, I've never really read a book, particularly a horror-ish book that explores aging much at all, really. And I just thought this was a beautiful, beautiful book. I want to read more by Iain Reid. He's gonna be somebody I check out his stuff from the library every time I see it now. I think he only has one other book out, but they're weed whacking outside, so I am sorry for that noise. All right. That was January. We're done with January, into February, which is the normal video that I would be posting right about now. February, I'm just gonna go in order that I read things because who needs consistency? All right, y'all. The first book I read in February was an easy 5 stars. It is a book that I had on my 23 books to read in 2023, and that is none other than The Good House by Tananarive. I was highly anticipating reading this book. It was something that I thought would be a 5 stars anyway. Holy crap, easy 5 stars. So good. We are following our main character, Angela, who goes back to her family home in Washington. I want to say it's in Washington, after a tragedy had occurred in her life, and she left her family home, and now she's back to kind of uncover secrets, figure out what's really happening. She ends up discovering that there is an evil presence in her house that is driving local people in the town to commit acts of violence. This is kind of a haunted house story, but not really. It's more of a cursed land story, and oh my goodness, it was so good. I think if you like Stephen King and the way he writes slow burn horror that focuses on relationships, that focuses on the town's personality, I think you'll really enjoy this. Kind of like how Salem's Lot, you learn the town, you learn just about every resident in the town. This book does the same thing. So when bad things do happen, you are already invested in multiple people involved in the things happening. This book is excellent if you like haunted house stories, or even if you don't. If you like character-driven stories, I think you'll love this. This next book was basically a 5-star read. I gave it 4.5 stars because I didn't love it quite as much as some other romances that I've read, but that is Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley. This was so fun. It's the only romance that I read in February, but usually I don't read any in February because everyone else is. I don't know why my brain does the brain things. But yeah, this was so fun. I hadn't read a cute, fuzzy, cozy romance in forever, and this was so good. So we're following 2 main characters, and we do get both of their point of view during the story, which I love. We're following Jada, who is a somewhat disgraced reality TV star, and we're following Donovan. Who is a football player, but also co-owns, I forget the name of the bakery, but he co-owns a little cupcake bakery with 2 of his other teammates, and they're so cute. So Jada finds herself working for Donovan in his shop, and they do not like each other. This is a hate to love romance. This has cupcakes in it. We don't have the whole 3rd act miscommunication trope. I hate that. I hate it when miscommunication is the reason there's some sort of a falling out. This did not have miscommunication. If it did, it was so subtle that I just forgot about it somehow. I don't know. But anyway, I loved this book so much. Solid, fun, cozy, sweet romance that just made my heart so warm. Like, so cute. The next 2 books I read were the 2nd and 3rd book in the Finlay Donovan series. So that is Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead and Finlay Donovan Jumps the Gun. For the 2nd book, I can't really tell you what it's about because it would spoil the ending of the 1st book. But I gave Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead 3.25 stars, so I actually liked it a little better than the 1st book. I don't know if that's because there was more character development and just spending more time with the characters, if I like softened up to them more or not, but yes, I like this one better. For Finlay Donovan Jumps the Gun, which is the newest release, I actually enjoyed this one the most, which is really funny to me because diehard Finlay Donovan fans seem to enjoy it the least. I like that this one took place in more of a centralized location. There wasn't a whole lot of running around. It takes place at like this citizen police academy training that Finlay and her sidekick Vero go to. I like the setting. I liked the action more. I feel like the plot of this third book was more of the vibe of what I was expecting from the first and the second book. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I think I would like, funnily enough, I think I would like this whole series more if it was all told from the point of view of Vero instead of Finlay. Like, keep everything else the same, plot, you know, all of that. But I like Vero more as a character. I think she's more interesting, and I think her point of view would be more entertaining than Finlay. Sorry. All right, the next book I read is Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes, I believe, by LaRocca. I picked this up mainly for the titular book because Things Have Gotten Worse Since You Last Spoke came out 1 or 2 years ago and everyone loved it, and I was like, ooh, I want to love it too. But then it went out of print and I was like, what do I do now? So this came out, so it has obviously the titular story. I'm not going to keep saying the title because it's a mouthful. And it has 2 other stories in it as well. Did I say what I rated it? I gave this a 5. I was going to give this like a 4, maybe a 4.5 because I didn't love the last story that much. But when I read the author's note in the back and read how LaRocca like tied all 3 of these stories together and like what these stories meant to them and kind of a little bit about their life growing up, I was just kind of like, oh wow, this is 5 stars. Like after reading it, I don't know why, but after reading the author's note, I couldn't give it less than 5 stars. So very briefly, the first story takes place, it's basically transcripts of an internet chat room, transcripts and emails of early 2000s internet chat room between these 2 women. It's sapphic, and bad things happen, and there's an apple peeler. I love the quote that gets used with this book all the time, which is, what have you done lately to deserve your eyes? I think that is such a chilling quote to have in a story, and for the length of this story, it was so impactful. And I think LaRocca really excels at writing really impactful stories very succinctly, unlike me talking. The second story takes place kind of on like this remote island where this couple who has just experienced a tragedy in their lives kind of go to work on this island during the off season, a la The Shining. This story in particular explores grief and religion, which are 2 of my favorite things to explore in horror. I thought it was really, really well done. If you like The Shining, kind of like the cabin feveriness of The Shining, but want it in like 50 pages instead or less, I think you would enjoy this story. It is quite strange, much like the rest of LaRocca's work, but it is still very good. I really enjoyed it. The third story I enjoyed the least amount, but it was still good. This follows a man who confronts his neighbor about like a strange object that he's found in his yard, and his neighbor then starts like offering him money and daring him to do like increasingly odd things. Not necessarily bad for the first little bit, but odd. Yeah, that's the book. 5 stars. Okay, the next book on here is Given by Nandi Taylor. I just punched myself. I gave this like 3.25 stars. This is on Kindle Unlimited, so I read this on my Kindle. Look at her, she's adorable. She's collecting stickers. Okay, so Given is a fantasy about our main character, Yenny, who travels to the island of Kresh to study at this battle and magic academy. And while there, she also is kind of on her own singular quest to find a cure for this mysterious illness that her father is suffering from. And while she is at this academy, she meets this boy, Waish? I don't know how to pronounce his name. Anyway, she meets this boy, and he's a shapeshifter. He can shapeshift into a dragon, much like some other people can on this island. It's not like a crazy weird thing. So he is like boy dragon. And he's basically like, you're my given. And she's like, what? And he's like, you are destined to be my wife. And she's like hell I am. And so it's a hate to love. Yeah, there's a lot of elements to this book, and I think for the most part, like, I don't think this book is bad at all. It's just wasn't for me. The romance took a larger forefront than I was expecting, and I didn't think that the characters had any chemistry. I didn't really believe the hate to love could happen as quickly as it did. I actually really loved its commentary on colonialism. I thought it was really well integrated into the plot. I liked the Magic Academy. I actually really liked the scenes that took place in the Magic Academy. Like, Yenny has confrontations with her professors, and those conversations were really good. Literally, Dragon Boy messed this book up for me, which sucks because I freaking love dragons. I don't know. I feel like maybe I would believe the relationship more in a second book, and this did kind of set up as if it could have a sequel, but it rounded out enough where it doesn't need one. But if it got one, I wouldn't be surprised. I would probably read it, because I do think that this is a talented author. I just did not quite get everything out of this that I wanted. If you do like hate to love romances and shape-shifting dragons and want that in the forefront of your fantasy, give this a shot for sure. I wanted more battle and less romance. The next book on here was a 5-star read, and that is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I had a blast reading this. This was another 23 and 23 read for me, and it was so fun. We're following Louise and her brother Mark after the death of their parents. They're kind of what is that word? Estranged. They're estranged siblings that kind of hate each other, but they come together at their family home after the death of their parents to try and sell the house, which is haunted. This, like I said, it's a haunted house. There's creepy dolls, there's puppets. That's all I needed to know, so that's all I'm telling you, because that's the plot. Yeah. I will say I liked how grief was explored in this. I liked how complex sibling relationships was discussed in this, and how they're, I don't have a sibling, but I do know that sibling relationships are indeed complex and have a lot of layers to it. And I thought this book did that justice. I thought it did it really well. I think this is one of Grady Hendrix's better books. Yeah. I had a good time. The next book I read is the only one that I have to hold up right now, and it's a library book, but that is The Butcher and the Wren by Alaina Urquhart. She is the co-host of Morbid, a true crime podcast, which I have never listened to, but I think I might. She's also, she's an autopsy technician, so she does have knowledge about the scientific and anatomical things that occur in crime. This was good. This was what did I give it? Like a 3.25. It's very short. It's like not even 300 pages. If you are an avid thriller reader, you might not like this that much. If you are new to thrillers, maybe give this a shot. So we're following our main character, Wren, who is a medical examiner. This takes place in Louisiana. I believe it's in straight up in New Orleans, but this takes place in Louisiana. She's a medical examiner, and there's a serial killer on the loose, and Wren is kind of on the case. Like, she's following clues as much as the actual detectives are. This book is popcorn. This book is easy to read. There is not a lot of character depth. It is very fast paced, maybe a little bit too much so, because it's like bam, 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 bam. Like we are going. So I think it's maybe a little too fast paced because there is not a lot of character depth, but when I picked this up, I didn't care. I didn't want character depth. I just wanted a story. I just wanted, a little bit of gore, a little bit of autopsy. So I didn't care about character depth. If you do care about character depth, if you are wanting that from your thrillers, maybe don't go to this one. The chapters are super short. This is dual perspective. Like, every other chapter is Wren and every other chapter is the serial killer himself. I did not realize that this is the potential first book in a series when I picked it up. I don't think it needs a second book, but I think it will be getting one. I might pick it up when it comes out, but I'm not going to be like, ooh, gimme. I think the ending was a little rushed. I feel like when she was writing the end, she got really excited about the action and her fingers went faster than her brain, or maybe her brain went faster than her fingers. I don't know. It wasn't synced up. It was a little too like boom, 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 action over. And I was just like, huh, what happened? So I don't not recommend this book, but I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, it's amazing. It was just, if you need to get out of a reading slump, if you need some popcorn in your life, if you need a little candy, this is a good book. I had a good time reading it. I was able to read it in one sitting, which I don't usually do. But this was fast and like, I had a good time, but objectively, this is like a 3-star read because it's nothing mind-blowing. The next book on here is Your House is on Fire, Your Children All Gone by Stefan. I don't remember. This, I believe, was originally written in German, so this is a translated piece of horror fiction. I gave this 4 stars, but I still in my heart don't really know how to rate it because like when I finished it, I was like, maybe 3.5. And then I kept thinking about it and I couldn't stop thinking about this book after I finished it. And I was like, well, it's definitely a 4. But the more I think about it, I'm like, I think it has, honestly, for me, I think it has 5-star potential. This is a weird book. This book is not for everyone. And hopefully after I talk about it, you can decide for yourself, obviously, if this book is for you or not. And hopefully my rambling about it can help you decide that because this is a funky little book. What is this about? This takes place in post-World War II small town of Germany area. It takes place in this little village. No one really leaves the village. Like the citizens of this village, they don't really leave. And they don't really like outsiders coming in either. They are very kept to themselves, like isolated, close-knit little village there. Again, this is translated. The writing style took me a little bit to get into. The prologue and the first couple of chapters, I was just like, But once I got into like the writing style, which is very abrupt. This is very abrupt writing style. It'll be like, this thing is happening and la-di-da-di-da, and this thing is happening. This horrifying thing just happened. And now we're just moving on with our lives. And then you're just like, what did I just read? Because the horror is thrown in so casually. So that threw me for a minute because I was like, oh God, like somebody just died and no one cares. That is the vibe of the book. Somebody just died and no one cares. This is a multiple perspective book. We are following the different perspectives of this group of friends. Each chapter is a different perspective. So that was another thing that was difficult to keep up with, was the different perspectives, because there's like 4 or 5 of them. The other jarring thing, now this is the biggest thing I think you should know before going into this book. This is not a one plot, one line story. This is more like a short story collection that is all connected and going toward, it has the same goal at the end, kind of. But this really does read, especially the first like three chapter perspectives in here. This reads like short stories. If you like short story collections, this is a novel, but if you like short story collections, check this out. If you like coming of age horror, check this out, maybe. If you like emotionless writing, I think you'll like this. I think a big thing for me, and one reason that I would even say this could be a 5-star for me, is I think the reread value of this book is impeccable. I think upon reread, this book will be much better. This book is so fascinating. There's so many horrible things that happen. I can't really tell you what it's about because honestly, I don't know. I don't really know what it's about, but it is coming of age. It is small, isolated village. There is some supernaturally elements to it, but in a very folk horror kind of way. Although I would not say it's folk horror. It's short. So if any of that is intriguing to you, definitely give this a go, but do give it a couple of chapters to really get into the book. I thought about DNFing it and then I was like, no, it's short, I'm gonna go through it. And then when I finished it, I was like, I literally couldn't stop thinking about it, and I don't know how to talk about it very well, but it was fascinating. The next book that I read, I listened to this on audio, and that is Cool Awkward Black, which is a short story YA anthology edited by Karen Strong. This is basically, each story focuses on Black kids doing nerdy, geeky, quirky, joyful things. and it was so heartwarming. It made me so, every story, honestly, I really, really enjoyed. You have, you know, D&D and Comic Cons and live action role playing and crafting. There's a sprinkle of magic over in this story and horror. There's like one in particular that I would consider more on the horror side. It was such a fun YA anthology, and I think I'm back into YA now because like this was so fun. I had such a good time. I haven't read YA in a while, and I've never picked up an anthology of YA stories before, but listening to this on audio was such a joyful, fun ride. And there were some authors in here that I haven't heard of, but I'm not a big YA reader, so it makes sense that I haven't heard of some of them. But now that I've read some of their stories, if they have any novels out, I want to read them because this was so good. And then the final book that I finished on the last day of February is The Dead Zone by Stephen King. Finally, I've been saying for months, like, I need to read The Dead Zone, and I keep picking it up and I'm like, it's not time yet. It was, well, way past time. I read The Dead Zone. I loved it. 4.5 stars, but basically 5. So we are following our main character, Johnny Smith, who has woken up from a 5-year coma with the strange ability to tell people's past and futures when he touches them. I'll kind of leave it at that because, you know, the story in true Stephen King style is quite slow paced, but like in a perfect way for me. I love the characters in this. This has themes of religion and love, which is not normal for Stephen King to actually have like a decent couple in there. But I actually did really love the coupling of Johnny and what's her name. It also has like morally gray characters and like what is the right thing to do when you know about someone's past or when you know about someone's future. Yeah, I thought this was great. This isn't horror, so if you want to try Stephen King but don't want to read horror, this isn't horror. I don't care where the library puts it on their shelf, it's not. But yeah, I thought this was great. I'm excited to keep reading through Stephen King's works. So wow, that took for friggin' ever. That's all the books I read this January and February. We are doing singular monthly wrap-ups from now on, or recent reads if I go over 10 books, because holy moly, I'm tired of talking. So, all right. Thanks for sticking around. I hope y'all are having a great day, week, what have you. Yeah, I will see y'all in my next video. Bye.